She walked through the door humming, like she hadn't just disappeared for 19 hours after dinner with an old friend. Like I wasn't pacing the living room at 3:12 a.m., holding my phone like it owed me an explanation. She didn't even look at me at first, just kicked off her shoes, slipped off her jacket, and headed toward the bathroom like it was any other Tuesday. I counted every second of her silence like it was a countdown. When I finally said, "Where were you?" she laughed. Not nervously, not guiltily. She laughed the way people do when they think you're being dramatic. "Oh my God, Reese, it was just a fun date," she said, brushing past me. "Stop looking like I robbed a bank." That word, date, hit different. She hadn't said catch up. She hadn't said dinner. She'd called it a date. "Did you just say date?" I asked, trying to keep my voice from shaking. She stopped at the foot of the stairs. "Okay, poor choice of words. Not a date. Like a nostalgia thing. He was in town, we got dinner, we talked. It's not like I slept with him." That, "not like I slept with him," came too fast. Too defensive. Like it was rehearsed. I stared at her, and she finally noticed. I wasn't blinking. I wasn't moving. I had become furniture in my own house. The furniture she never dusted. "Reese, I'm tired," she said, frowning. "You seriously want to fight right now?" No, I didn't want to fight. I wanted her to rewind time 24 hours and choose me instead of this fantasy blast from the past guy with a sleeve tattoo and dimples he probably weaponized over cocktails. But she didn't rewind. She went upstairs, and I stood there in my socks, holding a printed copy of our wedding vows I'd found in a drawer that afternoon. Yeah, I was that pathetic. I had pulled them out, thinking maybe reading them would help me feel grounded. They just made me feel duped. I slept on the couch that night. Well, I laid on the couch. No sleeping happened. Just the same thought on repeat, like a skipping record. She said it was just a fun date. She said it was just a fun date. She said it was just a fun date. But the way she smiled when she got home, that wasn't fun. That was fed. Like someone had poured something into her that she hadn't felt in years. And I was starving. She fell asleep upstairs like nothing had happened. Meanwhile, I lay on the couch staring at the ceiling fan, spinning slower than my thoughts. I told myself I was overthinking, that I always did this, that I always ruined perfectly normal moments with my endless questions and insecurities. But then again, perfectly normal moments don't usually end with your wife coming home after 2 a.m. in yesterday's eyeliner, casually dropping the word date like it meant nothing. Around 4:17 a.m., I sat up and grabbed her iPad from the bookshelf. I hadn't looked through her things in over 2 years. I hated it. I hate what it says about me. But I hated the silence in her explanations more. I opened Safari, not expecting anything. But then I saw the top search. Can you still feel something for someone after 10 years? My stomach turned. That wasn't something you ask Google after a friendly catch-up dinner. And right below that, a Google Maps link. It opened to a rooftop bar 2 cities over, not the restaurant she said they'd gone to. I zoomed in and saw the building name. A boutique hotel. I sat there in the dark, in my own house, wondering how I had become the outsider in my own marriage. I wanted to wake her up and scream. I wanted to tear through her suitcase and find some kind of proof, something I could hold up and say, "See? I knew it." But I didn't. I just sat there holding the iPad like it was radioactive, like it could still burn me more. By 7 a.m., I had already made a decision, not out of rage, but because for the first time, I stopped begging the universe to prove me wrong. I started believing what it had been showing me all along. I made coffee. Black. She hated black coffee. Said it tasted like burnt paper. I drank 2 cups while I packed her clothes. All of them. Not just the drawer stuff. I took the time to fold her favorite silk robe, her matching gym sets, even the ugly pajama shorts with little pineapples on them. Every piece of her life that lived in this house went into those suitcases. The hardest part? Her books. I stared at that shelf like it was a shrine. So many underlined pages. So many notes in the margins from nights when we read side by side. I couldn't bring myself to touch them, so I just left a sticky note. "You forgot how much these meant." Around 9:30, the door opened again. She stepped inside holding an iced latte and a shopping bag, completely unfazed. When she saw the suitcases by the door, her whole face went pale. Then came the fake smile. "What's going on?" she asked, like she had walked into the wrong house. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just pointed to the coffee table. The divorce papers were right there, with a pen. Signed. Dated. Filed. She laughed again, nervous this time. Reese, what is this? Are you serious right now? I nodded. You said it was just a fun date, I whispered. But you lied about where. You lied about when. And I can feel it in my bones. You're lying about what? She dropped the shopping bag. Her hand covered her mouth like she wanted to rewind time. But time doesn't rewind for people who play games with other hearts. She didn't say a word after that. Just stared at the door like she wasn't sure if walking through it would make this nightmare real. It already was. She didn't cry. That's the part that haunts me the most. She stood there staring at her own luggage like it had packed itself. Like she couldn't believe her own fantasy had consequences. I half expected her to launch into some dramatic monologue, swear on her life, throw herself into my arms, and sob that she made a mistake. But nope, nothing. Just a twitch at the corner of her mouth, like she was calculating the next move in a game I didn't know we were playing. I walked past her, didn't even look her in the eye, and opened the door. Not to kick her out. I wasn't even that bold yet, but because I physically couldn't breathe in the same room anymore. It was like the walls had become witnesses to something filthy, and I didn't want them looking at me. She stepped forward slowly, heels clacking on the hardwood floor like she was walking away from a crime scene. She paused in the doorway, turned to me, and said the one line that made my skin crawl more than anything else. You're seriously doing this over a feeling? Not an affair. Not a lie. A feeling. Like intuition wasn't allowed. Like my gut didn't matter unless she validated it. When the door finally shut behind her, the house was so quiet it felt hostile. I sank to the floor, just collapsed like my spine had given out. I don't know how long I sat there, but by the time I stood up again, the sun was gone and my phone had 4 missed calls from her. I didn't listen to the first 3 voicemails. But the fourth one, something about it. I don't know. The length, maybe. Almost 4 minutes. I hit play. At first it was just silence, then a breath, and then she started talking. Slowly, carefully. Reese, if you're hearing this, it means you already made up your mind. And I get it. I do. You've always been the emotional one. You feel everything too much. And I probably should have been more honest about how I was feeling. But Malik showing up wasn't something I planned. It reminded me who I used to be. Before all the schedules. Before we became the couple who meal preps and watches documentaries. He made me feel like me again. There was a pause. Then she laughed, bitterly. But maybe that makes me the villain. I don't know. All I know is I didn't expect to feel anything. I didn't expect to want to see him again. And now here we are. I messed up. I know I did. But you're not innocent, Reese. You stopped seeing me a long time ago. You started treating me like I was a houseplant, something that's just there, as long as it doesn't make noise. Another pause. A longer one. I thought it had ended. Then she added one final line, like a nail driven straight through my chest. Tell me the truth. Did you pack my things because I hurt you? Or because you were finally relieved to have a reason? I didn't sleep again that night. But it wasn't because I missed her. It was because someone else texted me after midnight. Someone I hadn't spoken to in years. Malik's wife. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Just a wrong number. Or maybe some cruel prank by the universe. But the message was clear. 5 words. No punctuation, no emoji, just raw. You deserve to know everything. It came from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't reply. My hands were still shaking from Callie's voicemail, and my brain felt like it was stuck buffering. But something in me, maybe the part that had been quietly falling apart for months, knew exactly who it was. I texted back one word. Who? Seconds later, the reply came. Vivian, Malik's wife. I stood in the kitchen for a long time, phone clenched in my hand like a grenade with the pin halfway out. Vivian. I remembered the name in passing once. Callie had mentioned Malik was married now with a kid or something, but she'd brushed right over it like a throwaway fact. But here she was, texting me at 12:41 a.m. like she'd been sitting with this truth, alone, waiting for someone else to finally admit it was real. I asked her to call me. I didn't expect her to, but she did. Her voice wasn't angry. It was calm, tired, like someone who had been screaming inside for too long and finally gave up expecting anyone to hear her. I'm sorry to reach out like this, she said first, but I saw your name in the hotel booking. Malik's a genius at covering his tracks, but not with tech. He used our shared card for the bar tab, then booked the room under a different name. Your name. I didn't understand at first. Wait, he used my name? She sighed. No, he used your wife's name. She signed for the room. I saw the check-in log. I felt the bottom of my lungs collapse. It was one thing to suspect, another to hear your wife physically signed into a hotel with another man. But what stunned me most wasn't the betrayal. It was that Malik had done this before, more than once. He'd used different aliases, different excuses, different women. Vivian had been playing detective for years. And this time, the trail led directly to my front door. "Look," she said gently, "I'm not here to cause more damage. I just thought you deserved the truth. I would have wanted someone to tell me." The call ended quietly, but my thoughts didn't. I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the pillow she hadn't used in 2 nights. I thought of all the times I blamed myself. For being boring. For working too much. For not planning spontaneous weekend trips like she hinted for months. I thought of all the books I read on how to be a better partner. The therapy podcasts. The calendar reminders to compliment her more. And none of it mattered. Because the whole time I was fighting for us, she was playing house with a man who cheats on his wife like it's a sport. The next morning, she came back. Probably thinking I'd cool off. Probably expecting me to be the same weak, spineless version of myself who apologized just for asking questions. But this time, I was waiting in the living room. Calm. Cold. And when she saw me holding her key in my hand, she didn't even ask. She just whispered, "You found out." She didn't cry when I held out her key. She didn't scream or beg or try to grab it back. She just stood there in the doorway, holding her purse like she wasn't sure if she should come in or run. I watched her eyes dart from the kitchen, to the hallway, to the packed bags still sitting where I left them 2 days earlier. It was like she thought this was all a bluff, like I was too weak to follow through. I dropped the key on the coffee table without a word. The sound it made felt louder than any argument we'd ever had. She finally spoke. "So you talked to her?" I nodded. "Vivian." Callie let out a breath through her nose and rubbed the side of her neck like she'd just pulled a muscle. "Of course she called you. I figured she might." "You figured she might?" I repeated. "Not you figured this might blow up in your face? Or you figured cheating on your husband would have consequences? Just she might call me? That's what you were worried about?" "I didn't cheat," she snapped too quickly. "It wasn't like that." "Oh, really?" I stepped closer, my voice rising. "You lied about where you were, who you were with, what you were doing, and now you're telling me it wasn't cheating." She looked me dead in the eyes, and that's when she said it, the sentence that made my whole body go still. "It was emotional, Reese. Not physical. That's not the same." I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because I couldn't believe I was hearing this. I pointed to the iPad still sitting on the table. "You searched. Can you still feel something after 10 years? You checked into a hotel under your real name. You stayed out until 2 a.m., came home humming like you'd been kissed back to life, and now you want to split hairs over whether or not your clothes were on." She crossed her arms. "You always do this. You make it black and white." "Because it is," I said. "You don't go to a hotel to discuss your favorite college electives, Callie. You go there to pretend you're someone you're not, with someone you shouldn't be with." Her face changed then, not with guilt, but frustration, like I was the one ruining something beautiful. "You don't get it," she said, pacing now. "Malik was never supposed to come back into my life. But when I saw him again, it was like stepping into a version of me that felt alive. He reminded me who I was before all of this. Before we became roommates." There it was. Roommates. The one word no husband ever wants to hear. The word that says, "You're not enough, but I'm too cowardly to leave." I stayed silent. Let her keep digging. "I didn't plan it," she continued, softer now. "I just wanted to feel something again. Something different. Something that made me remember I was still worth noticing." That's when I realized this wasn't an apology. It wasn't even regret. It was justification, a rehearsed explanation for why I was collateral in her little identity crisis. She walked over to me, slowly, and placed her hand on my arm. "Reese, I didn't want to hurt you." I pulled away, gently, but firmly. "You just didn't care if you did." Her eyes watered then, finally. But I didn't trust those tears. Not anymore. I had cried enough for both of us. I pointed to the door. She didn't fight it. She picked up her bags, one by one. Walked out slowly. No slam. No final words. Just the soft, heavy sound of a door closing on everything we never fixed. I thought that was the end. The bags were gone. The door was shut. I told myself that was closure. Neat, final, done. But the thing about endings is that real ones never come with silence. They come with echoes. And one of those echoes was sitting right there on the floor of the coat closet, wedged behind her favorite pair of boots. Her journal. Callie never wrote in anything. She wasn't the type to keep diaries or planners. She called journaling emotional hoarding. But I remembered once, maybe 2 winters ago, she'd started writing again after some self-help workshop her company paid for. I hadn't seen that notebook since. I thought she tossed it. But there it was, dog-eared and dusted with months of neglect, half hidden like a confession that forgot to bury itself properly. I should have left it alone. I really should have. But curiosity has a cruel way of dressing up like closure. I told myself I'd just look at one page. But I ended up sitting on the hallway floor for an hour, reading every single word until my eyes burned. It wasn't a journal in the way you'd expect. No Dear Diary. No stream of consciousness rambles. Just short, raw paragraphs. Moments frozen in ink. Most entries had dates. Some had names. And then I found it. 2 pages dated just 1 week before she left for that fun dinner with Malik. I know what I'm doing is wrong. But Reese doesn't see me anymore. He hears me, but he doesn't listen. I ask for spontaneity, and he schedules date night like it's a dentist appointment. I crave danger, and he gives me routine. I need more. The next line chilled me. Malik makes me feel like I'm not a mistake. Not I'm not making a mistake. No, I'm not a mistake. That line hit deeper than any physical betrayal ever could. Because it wasn't just about Malik. It was about me, about how she saw me, how she defined herself through the lack she thought I represented. I'd spent years believing I was the steady anchor in her storm. Turns out, I was just the weight. I kept reading. There was an entry written the morning after their dinner. I thought I'd feel guilt. I don't. I feel seen. I feel alive. Is that so wrong? Reese will never know. He'll just keep putting out the recycling and leaving his socks on the floor, and we'll both pretend we're happy. Maybe this was a one-time thing. Maybe not. Either way, it's mine. For once, something is mine. That page broke me. She didn't just betray me. She claimed ownership over the betrayal, like it was a gift to herself. A reward for surviving the dullness she pinned on me. Later that night, I texted Vivian. I needed to know something. Anything. That could explain the mess we were both left with. I asked her the one question still gnawing at the back of my skull. How long was it going on? Her reply came in seconds. Since March. Maybe February. Not sure. But definitely not just one night. I looked back at the journal. The first Malik entry was from January. My wife had been rewriting our marriage since winter. And I never saw it coming. A week passed without a single word from her. No texts. No calls. Not even an accidental like on an old photo. And honestly, I thought I'd feel better by then. That maybe, without her here, the silence would turn peaceful. It didn't. It just got heavier. Every room in the house still smelled like her perfume, that soft vanilla scent she used to spray on the pillows before bed. I tried airing out the sheets, washing them twice. Nothing worked. The scent lingered like a final insult. Like even when she was gone, she still had the power to haunt the air I breathed. And then I saw her again. Not in a movie moment. Not at some dramatic reunion or showdown. No, it was at a pharmacy. A random Thursday. I was standing in line waiting to pick up something for my sinuses, and she walked in like a ghost wearing sunglasses. At first, she didn't see me. She looked tired, like she hadn't been sleeping. Her hair was tied up in that lazy bun she always used when she didn't want to talk to anyone. She moved like someone trying to be invisible. And for once, I let her. I paid, turned, and walked straight to the exit. I almost made it. But then I heard her voice, quiet, breathless, behind me. Reese, wait. I froze. My whole body wanted to keep moving. But my heart. That traitor stopped dead in its tracks. I turned around slowly. She wasn't crying. Not yet. But she looked close. Her lips parted like she had a dozen things to say, but no clue which one mattered most. I didn't expect to see you, she whispered. Same, I said. Flat. Controlled. I've been meaning to. I just didn't know if I should reach out. You shouldn't have, I replied. But here we are. She flinched at that, then slowly stepped closer, looking down at the bag in her hand. That's when I saw it. A prescription. Prenatal vitamins. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. My ears started ringing. Everything in me froze except for my heart, which pounded so hard I swear people in the parking lot could hear it. She noticed. Her hand gripped the bag tighter. It's not yours, she said quickly. Before you even ask. It's not yours. And somehow that hurt worse than if it had been. Because in that moment, I realized something brutal. She had started an entirely new life while I was still picking up the wreckage of the old one. She had made a choice. She'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. And now there was a baby involved. I looked her dead in the eyes and said something I never imagined I'd be strong enough to say. I hope he gives you the danger you wanted. I hope it was worth what you burned. She opened her mouth like she wanted to defend it. Maybe say something about love or fate or how things just happen. But I didn't wait for the excuse. I walked out. For real this time. It's strange how healing doesn't feel like fireworks. It's more like finally remembering how to breathe after holding it for too long. That was me, standing in my driveway 3 weeks after that pharmacy run-in, watching the sun set over a yard I hadn't touched in months. The weeds had taken over. The mailbox leaned like it had given up. But for once, I wasn't looking at the broken pieces. I was looking at what was still standing. The first real shift came from the least expected place. A text from Vivian. She didn't say much. Just a photo of her and her son eating ice cream by the lake, with the caption, "We're okay now. Hope you get your okay too." It hit me harder than I thought. Not the sadness, the peace in it. She didn't choose bitterness. She didn't drown herself in questions. She just moved on. With love still in her life, even if it came from a different place. That's when I made a decision I'd been afraid to make. I signed the sale papers on the house. Not out of spite. Not to erase Callie. But because I needed a space that wasn't haunted by echoing footsteps and unopened apologies. I needed somewhere I didn't associate with wondering where she was at 1:37 a.m. A week later, I moved into a modest apartment near downtown. Nothing fancy, but it had big windows and quiet neighbors. And more importantly, it was mine. 2 months passed. No contact. Until one day, a letter arrived. Not an email. Not a text. A real letter, handwritten in soft blue ink. It was from Callie. No return address. Just her first name on the back. I held it for an hour before opening it. Inside was a single page. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She didn't beg. She simply told the truth. That she had been lost, and instead of asking for help, she tried to feel powerful again by hurting someone who never stopped loving her. She admitted it all, the hotel, the messages, even that she knew about Vivian long before I did. And then the last paragraph changed everything. You didn't deserve what I did, but you deserve better than who I was. I hope one day, if we ever run into each other again, you'll be standing next to someone who makes you laugh at breakfast and listens when you talk about things that don't seem important to anyone else. Because those little things are everything. And you always gave me everything. I folded the letter. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just smiled. Because for the first time since she left, I felt something real. I was free. Months later, 6, maybe 7, I met someone at a bookshop. Her name was Odessa. Soft voice, chaotic hair, and a laugh that made you forget what time it was. We started slow. Really slow. I told her everything on the second date. All of it. She didn't flinch. Just took my hand and said, "You didn't deserve that. But I'm glad it brought you here." Now, when I look back at the night Callie said it was just a fun date, I don't feel hate. I don't feel heartbreak. I feel grateful. Because sometimes losing what you think you can't live without is the only way to find what you actually need.